Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Q2 Abaxx Exchange Launch Review and Technology Roadmap Update and Investor Call. For those of you new to the call format, we've hosted these calls semi-regularly around key project milestone period ends and not typically referencing financial statements or specific financial outlooks on these project update calls. Instead, as in recent calls, the call is intended to serve as a review of recent disclosures and a forum for investor Q&A. This call today will likely be the last of our project roadmap specific investor calls, as I'm very pleased to report that as of Friday, June 28th, the Abaxx Commodity Futures Exchange and Clearinghouse is now fully operational and revenue generating, beginning a new chapter in the Abaxx journey. Going forward, we intend to present quarterly or half-term conference calls along with a presentation of financial results and various key performance indicators for investors at each reporting quarter end. During today's call, I will be referencing disclosures from the last week's exchange launch update and our regular disclosures found on SEDAR up until the end of Q2 last week. By reference to these press releases and disclosures, I also want to draw your attention to some of the specific cautionary statements and notices that accompany each of those releases respectively, and to start this call today by also referring to our caution and forward-looking statements and the regular risk disclosures of our quarterly and annual filings. Please see our disclaimer on forward-looking statements in the slide attached. I'm sure the Q&A portion of the call will be heavily focused on the recent launch of the Abaxx Exchange. With my prepared statements, I'll also highlight some of the exciting updates coming together on ID++ and the Abaxx technology suite. As many of you know, that's where I've been increasingly putting my personal attention and strategic focus during Q2. Having reached this operating growth stage, and now that Abaxx is one of the handful of commodity future businesses globally with our own independent clearinghouse and a major financial center, we should have a number of updates to share on both aspects of the business in the months to come. The new exchange members to onboard over the course of the summer, new firsts and physical delivery trades with our commodity industry partners, new products, and new milestones and product releases on the software technology side of our business as well. In many of today's commodity markets, and I would say the broader EV and electrification CapEx market generally, current prices seem increasingly disconnected from incentive prices required to actually deliver the scale of this clean, low-emission supply growth needed to facilitate the mass electrification goals being set out by our governments globally. So now more than ever, we need market infrastructure innovation and new smarter markets pricing and data innovations to keep capital flowing to the best projects. And finally, I think it's important to caution that as I talk through our technology and digital product roadmap later, as it relates to any potential future integrations with the exchange or clearinghouse in Singapore, or potential future products or technology integrations, all of these innovative products would need to be reviewed and or approved by our regulators, and also thoroughly vetted by our clearing members before any commercial use in our markets. So now, Tara, can you flip over to the agenda? Joining me on the call today are Chief Commercial Officer Joe Rea, Chief Strategy Officer David Greeley, Chief Product Officer or Head of Product Ian Forrester, and CFO Steve Frey. Today's call will be presented in 4 sections. I'll lead the first section covering the exchange and launch related corporate updates. I'll then hand the call over to Joe Rea for a short update on exchange member onboarding and for his early thoughts on the first trading days. I'll then walk through an update on our Phase 2 technology vision and discuss a targeted first ID++ software product release to the public here in late Q3 or early Q4, and then hand over to Dave Greeley for his exciting sneak preview of the Smarter Markets Coffee House platform, coming soon to an ID++ verified online community near you. And finally, we'll of course answer some investor Q&As in an open session. For institutions and analysts who are new to Abaxx on the call with us today, I would also encourage you to listen to our previous project update calls, which are on the Abaxx website and our Abaxx YouTube channel, drawing specific reference to the previous commercial product presentations from David Greeley on the LNG and voluntary carbon futures addressable market, his presentation on our nickel sulfate addressable market, the ID++ and Abaxx console suite technology demonstration from Ian Forrester, and my discussion in mid-2022 on our strategic approach to operating off of two balance sheets and two distinct but complementary business units, Abaxx Exchange and Clearing, which I will also refer to as Abaxx Singapore, and Abaxx Technologies, so that through the sum of the parts, we can realize our long-term smarter markets vision and strategy for changing the way commodities are priced and traded, to allow the invisible hand of free market to better discover and price and distribute the positive and negative externalities of the natural resource sector. Our path to achieving that underlying smarter markets vision started this last week with the launch of our next generation of commodity benchmarks and market infrastructure in Abaxx Singapore, the primary focus of the company. But in parallel, we're also developing next generation software and data infrastructure required to increase the trust and transparency in financial markets. I know that it might appear at first glance that Abaxx has a very unique business and capital strategy for this stage of development, developing two distinct operating businesses at once. But all of our combined teams are focused on the singular long-term vision, and of course, the long-term value that can be created for shareholders in achieving this level of unparalleled innovation, and executing this two-part strategy while tightly managing our cost of capital across both businesses and minimizing possible dilution to long-term shareholders focused on this prize. So first up, let's talk about the exchange that you've all tuned in for. This past Friday, June 28th, we launched the Abaxx Commodity Futures Exchange and Clearinghouse in Singapore, with trading commencing in physically deliverable liquefied natural gas and carbon futures contracts. 5 new centrally cleared, physically deliverable commodity futures contracts and LNG are now available for trading, a total of 98 new instruments across the 5 futures curves. Specifically, the products we launched on Friday were LNG Gulf of Mexico, GOM futures, LNG North Pacific Asia, the NPA futures, LNG Northwest Europe, the NWE futures, jurisdictional baseline related RED Plus 21 to 25 vintage carbon mitigation outcome units, the RD1 futures, and core CFAs 1 labeled carbon, CP1 futures. Later in Q3 here, we also expect to launch our suite of nickel sulfate futures, which we can talk about more in the Q&A. Our initial suite of futures contracts for LNG and carbon are open for trading 14 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Full clearing and execution are currently accessible through 2 clearing members, StoneX and KGI Securities. We should be in a position to announce additional clearing members this summer as well. We can also cover this FCM topic in more detail in the Q&A, but it is important to note that the initial volumes seen in the first few days have only been coming through 1 or 2 of these clearing firms who were able to trade it open. And within these FCMs, the Abaxx products have only been available to a limited number of initial execution brokers and their clients and market makers, and have only been available in general regions. They have not been available in all global regions in some of these early sessions. But over the course of Q3, we expect 4 more FCMs to be onboarded, 2 as direct clearing members, and 2 joining via carry broker relationships, and our first global bank FCM who is not yet connected, but expects to be within coming weeks. The additional FCMs should also open up more clients in more regions and more execution brokers and market makers. So by Q4, up to 6 FCMs should be connected for trade across regions, and prospectively, I should add that 2 other global banks we're working on in the connectivity pipeline, for Q4 or after. I should also note again that the profile of this initial clearing group is very strong for this stage of a new market launch, including a number of the most important commodity futures specialists, our first global bank FCM, and one of the leading FCMs in Asia, an important Singapore-based clearing business. Turning to the execution brokers, once the initial 4 FCMs are fully connected, the full list of early execution brokers will include Merix, Eagle Commodities, Evolution Markets, SSY, TPI Cap, and Venture Commodity Partners, along with introducing broker sweep futures. While the full slate of initial FCMs and execution brokers were all committed and very close to being ready for trading as of last week, we made the call to open the markets ahead of summer holidays while we're in an economic calm for our products. It became apparent heading into last week that not all brokers, nor most traders executing from Europe and North America through various global trading arrangements would be able to trade it open. But we realized at the beginning of the first new clearinghouse in many years, with new technology and new global products, it would be a month-long rolling start to trading regardless. And therefore, we decided to open the market and finalize the rest of the connectivity on the other side of launch over the remaining course of the summer. However, despite limited connectivity and regions open for first trade, we were extremely happy with initial sessions of trading, receiving both block trade orders as well as market-making spreads and central limit order book trading activity, particularly on a key LNG market right out of the open. And of course, it's always nice to see over $1 million notional and economic activity from global institutional clients transact on a platform in the early trading sessions. On behalf of all of Abaxx and the many years dedicated to this project by so many experienced market builders, it's nice to be now part of markets history and have the first physically deliverable GOM, Gulf of Mexico LNG futures up and trading, with more firsts to come soon. And on that note, I'll hand over to Joe Rea to share a few of his thoughts on the first few days of trading and the commercial path we'll take to connect more market participants across new block trades for physical clearing and build liquidity across these futures curves. Joe?
Thanks, Josh. As you described, building a new exchange and, more importantly, one of a few or small handful of regulated clearinghouses globally is extremely hard work, and it's also very complex. You've heard us describe these processes and complexities numerous times over the past 5 years. This past year, as to note, at the FIA, or Futures Industry Association, which we are now members of, their annual meeting in Boca, the two heads of the largest futures exchange groups noted publicly on a panel that they were, quote unquote, happy about the moats that they had built around their businesses. Well, we've now crossed that moat, but know that our hard, or really most importantly, our good work is just beginning. Way before our successful launch last Friday, as you described, Josh, all of the teams internally that are relevant and critical to the risk management, most importantly, of our clearing and our customer partners were being tested to make certain we were helping to manage or mitigate rather than add any additional risk into global commodity markets. Critical partners like our clearing firms, as you described, and the trading firms don't take managing this risk lightly. Gone are the days when we launched, quote unquote, tomorrow, as we did back in the day, as we were directed by the exchange chairman at the NYMEX when Dan and I launched Clearboard. And from those past experiences at the NYMEX and other exchanges, our teams know that to bring new products to market is extremely difficult. To bring a new clearinghouse to market is almost monumental. And I'm not using those words lightly. Our systems on June 28th performed flawlessly, from our technology to compliance to risk to ops and our onboarding teams. All of our internal systems worked as we expected, if not better. Trades that were entered as both block trades and central limit order book or electronically traded all cleared as expected, and the positions showed up in the customers' accounts. It's really a testament to the talent and the dedication to the global Abaxx team. We know that there's a lot of work ahead, but we are continually onboarding new trading and clearing and broker firms almost daily, with new inquiries coming in definitely daily. We are also fielding increasing calls continually for new products. So we know that there is demand from global market participants for new and better solutions for risk management in regulated markets. I'm confident that we have the right people and technology to meet all those demands. I hope that gives everyone a good glimpse into our launch and the coming days ahead, and the coming months ahead. And Josh, with that, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thanks, Joe. And before we move to the Q&A around the exchange launch, I also want to spend a bit of time on the state of our technology development and our broader Smarter Markets vision, and share with you the first exciting public software release that we're planning for Q3, which will be the first time that Abaxx has released software to the general public outside of the exchange. As investors know, there have always been two key pillars underlying the Abaxx vision. and strategy. First, launch a new so-called full stack exchange and clearinghouse, where we have control of our own exchange and integrated clearinghouse, running primarily on our own proprietary software infrastructure stack, along with close innovative vendors like Bay Markets and Exberry, and where we develop new, first-of-their-kind, physically deliverable commodity future products directly with commercial participants. And second, in the medium term, to essentially disrupt our own market from within by pushing new cutting-edge software technologies out into the market by leveraging the distribution and client relationships of our own business network post-launch. Now, for the first pillar, there are a number of paths that our experienced commodity market executives could have taken to develop new LNG, environmental, and battery metal markets. And we certainly chose the hardest path by developing the full stack ourselves, with a number of unexpected bumps along the way. But now that we've launched these initial markets, after choosing the road less traveled to build and launch the first new commodity clearinghouse in over a decade from scratch, a highly risky but now successful development endeavor, it is important to note that we will not stop innovating and taking new risks and pushing new rewards in the second pillar of our vision. As I touched on last call, from a commercial perspective, there are three potential strategic benefits to this full stack startup or internal disruption business model approach. First, as an indirect strategic benefit of this business unit configuration, by having our own in-house software development, software product development team and full stack engineers working on new and innovative ways to build a market infrastructure, and always keeping our tech team in the so-called front office of our business, we believe that we're able to stay ahead of market innovations by not always falling back on the default third-party products, consultants, and long lead time enterprise integrator projects that underlie most, if not all, of our competitors. We made a very hard decision in 2022 to change our initial exchange technology stack centered around NASDAQ systems, software designed to run on legacy on-prem data center configurations. And we built a more advanced cloud-based infrastructure, replacing NASDAQ with new vendors, Bay Markets and Exberry. This decision introduced new risks and a painful delay in the short term, but we believe that the decision now sets us up much better for the long term by accelerating the second phase or second pillar of our business with disruptive technology. And as an added benefit, we also believe that this new infrastructure and software deployed can reduce our costs significantly versus the legacy infrastructure of our exchange and clearinghouse competitors, and therefore open up a direct margin expansion opportunity and perhaps even setting up new business strategies that compete on price and volume in existing derivative markets. On a side note, I recently heard some pretty candid feedback from one of the tech major hyperscalers involved in one of the large ticket digital transformation projects. And they were commenting on the difficulties and complexities in our industry versus basically any others of making the switch to the cloud infrastructure, the infrastructure that we're now running on natively. Let alone the ambitious next generation roadmap that'll lay out ahead. The second strategic benefit is that it can potentially introduce new innovative commodity futures products and collateral optimization products that none of our competitors could introduce without similar software enabling components that our tech business has developed. And by this, of course, I mean full digital title of global commodity collateral, something that, in my view, would be a total game changer for the capital efficiency and risk management practices in global supply chains, and moving the exchange world closer to the vision of a decentralized future, but from the center of the clearing system outward. With our ID++ enabled software tools, our industry-leading exchange software cloud infrastructure, as well as a number of the new market infrastructure regulatory licenses that we've been progressing from the Abaxx tech side of the business, we're now finalizing our roadmaps and detailed planning for full digital title and smart commodity contracts to be revealed for 2025 and beyond. And as I should caution again, this full digital commodity collateral product is not part of our current regulatory approvals, but the advanced status of our software development and some key prior decisions to change our exchange software stack to embed ID++ natively will enable this opportunity to be a market innovation leader when all the infrastructure partners are ready. And beyond the significant capital efficiencies that can be unlocked from our important global supply chain with full digital title transfer services, the other product innovation enabled by our tech strategy what we call the smart commodity framework could potentially open up entirely new derivative asset classes. An Abaxx smart commodity is a full digital title that includes rich data on the origin and footprint of a commodity through a supply chain, but with a smart credential technology that only allows the persistent origin data to be accessed on a need-to-know verifiable credential permissioning basis. And so while others are certainly working on pilot stage blockchain collateral systems, or the often hyped multi-trillion-dollar market for the tokenization of real-world assets, we do believe that we have a unique and differentiated approach from any other marketplace. Our proprietary approach is enabled by ID++ and our software innovations to put identity tech and privacy tech as the central pillars of our innovation strategy, rather than now, in my opinion, the over-commoditized functionality of distributed ledgers and blockchain technology. I'll talk a bit more about this identity, privacy, digital ledger framework in a minute. But finally, the third strategic benefit of this software innovation strategy and the potential advantage of our corporate structure and software in the front office approach is how we're configured internally to take advantage of the rapid innovation and the unprecedented CapEx cycle that's taking place in the field of generative AI. Outside of our core commodity futures markets, or perhaps even outside the financial markets as a whole, we have been working through additional go-to-market strategies for ID++, which we believe is an essential new cloud trust framework for AI to unlock historical enterprise data in a private but trusted environment. We've often referred to ID++ and our Abaxx privacy technology as the commoditization of trust. I think this was a term that Andy Fedak and I put together back in 2018, or alternatively, a trust operating system. So whether it's the trading movement of digital assurance required for multi-million dollar value of full digital title, or it's the assurance needed to feed valuable proprietary data into external AI models. In the world that we're all headed to rapidly with this AI CapEx cycle, digital trust is everything. Unfortunately, this exact hard problem of digital trust is what Abaxx Technologies has been working on in software R&D for over 5 years. Network privacy, but with ID skin in the game accountability. So now that we've launched the exchange, for the first time on an investor call, let me go into a little bit deeper into our unique approach and proprietary infrastructure. When setting out to solve any hard engineering problem, or hard market infrastructure problem for that matter, it's important to first work backwards from the hardest constraints. Where I believe that an over-focus on blockchain has gotten off track for many years is that it's fundamentally trying to shove a square peg in a round hole when it comes to what is already relatively robust decentralized financial system. And while I believe the innovation of trustworthy computing via fully decentralized timestamp server and state machine has been revolutionary, the blockchain block space protocols are necessary but insufficient parts of the total engineering design from a financial use case perspective. Two missing pieces required to solve the decentralized trust problem in regulated markets is trusted identity that isn't centralized and the level of ledger privacy required for fiercely competing enterprises. I call this the identity ledger privacy trilemma. If you look around the market today, every blockchain-based tokenization solution ends up sacrificing or centralizing, or in other words, platformizing at least one of the requirements of this difficult trilemma. In our view, for the world to be ready for full digital title, especially in the fierce international game theory of global commodity markets that transcend sovereign legal jurisdictions, all 3 points on this hard trilemma trust triangle need to become a competitive marketplace for competing platforms and technologies. Or in other words, they require not just a winner-take-all platform solution, but a series of policies and protocols. Just as Abaxx Clearinghouse enforces the policies and protocols required to meet the standards to trade and go to delivery on a commodity contract, we're taking the approach that in order to accept a full digital title in our clearinghouse, we will require 1, an extremely high standard of certainty and finality of digital identity and the underlying title signatures. 2, an extremely high standard of certainty and finality in the distributed ledger state. And three, extremely high standards of certainty when it comes to the persistence of data that is passed privately between market participants. And of course, our own standards here will be very much aligned with that of our regulators' core principles and policies and principles, which is another engineering and incentive problem where a lot of the DeFi projects do not meet the hard constraints of the market. And so just to be clear, as both developer of this technology and engineers of these hard problems on one hand, and operators of the clearinghouse on the other, we will be the toughest clients that our software developers will ever see. As an example, I would never allow the current slate of Bitcoin ETFs to touch our clearinghouse as collateral, or any of the infrastructure that currently underlies them and the so-called qualified custodians of the digital asset space. They would need to meet Abaxx standards of digital trust that would require an international commodity, that would be required for an international commodity market. And these, I do not believe, solve the trust trilemma from a market infrastructure policies and protocols perspective. So with that background, turning to the tangible products in our phase 2 roadmap, I'd like to share a bit more about where we are with our technology strategy and product rollout. As I mentioned last call, probably the key software milestone achieved in 2023 was the development and deployment of ID++ v2, our decentralized digital identity and verifiable credentials protocol, and our integration of ID++ v1 into the Abaxx exchange and authentication and authorization applications. V2 is significant because we were able to get rid of the burden of running a permissioned blockchain while keeping strong end-to-end encryption, data self-custody, and peer-to-peer network architecture. This sets ID++ up to be an interoperable governance layer in the formal financial system for a growing number of layered one public blockchains that hold the state or the records of the assets. On the application side, we completed advanced prototypes and the bulk of our engineering enterprise-grade designs for our exchange-focused console suite, namely Abaxx Drive for holding persistent enterprise data. As an example, think commodity supply chain origin data. Abaxx Messenger as both an end-to-end encrypted enterprise messaging tool, but also the cockpit command prompt to our Abaxx network and full digital title workflow suite, and our digital document signing apps, all integrated using our new ID++ v2 and SDK. We also began using Abaxx Messenger internally within our organization, including its highly private and highly secure voice and video functionality running inside the Abaxx private network. Under what we were calling Project Venice, we developed functional prototypes for a new tier of console app suite aimed at our first potential client use cases outside of Abaxx Exchange, a commodity origin tracking and tracing solution designed for the broader carbon market ecosystem upstream of Abaxx Exchange derivative markets. This suite would include the use of Abaxx Messenger and the Abaxx Cockpit AI prompting tools for interacting with privately held enterprise data in Abaxx Drive, including the ability to collaborate securely between entities and without Abaxx overseeing the central platform, using verifiable permissions between enterprises. And finally, we've been working on a late Q3 or early Q4 public release of Abaxx Verifier with the Abaxx v2 ID++ protocol, with a first broad consumer use case of managing decentralized ID and verifiable credentials, membership credentials, for accessing the new Smarter Markets Coffeehouse platform that Dave Greeley will talk about in a minute. At the time of the beta release, we'll go into more details about the features and functionality of the products and protocols. But for now, I just want to touch on the strategy of releasing this product and others embedded with ID++ technology well ahead of the completion of all of the complex application components required for our full digital title and smart commodity infrastructure. First off, we believe that the product iteration and feedback is essential when building scalable software solutions. Frankly, it's taken more time for us to release some of these tools to the public than we'd have liked due to the many hard engineering problems. And of course, not just for us, but for the entire decentralized finance community and self-sovereign identity community, who's also struggled with enterprise adoption for many of the reasons I mentioned above. We also want to make sure that there's an actual functional use case and not releasing ID++ verifier and credential wallet with no end business goal. As the old technology adage goes, People don't want to know how the watch is made, they just want to know the time. With Abaxx Singapore, we had a first use case for clients to hold their membership credentials for login and accessing block trade, the block trade entity with ID plus V1. Now, with Smarter Markets Coffee House, we can release our verifier and membership credential wallet to the public with slick onboarding and passwordless login to an exclusive community, and as a direct access path to Abaxx market data for users outside of the exchange. This release also has the added benefit of being a low-risk use case for the brand new credential management, KYC, and Abaxx data privacy protocols. Again, allowing us to iterate toward the hard problem of the trust triangle in 2025 when we reveal full digital title and smart commodities collateral contracts. Going forward, will you continue to see core features and functionality required for full digital title released within initial small scope use cases across verifier and later within the messenger platform thereafter. And of course, we also only wanted to reveal more of our technology and strategy and shift this focus to our technology only after the launch of the Abaxx Clearinghouse and early commodity contracts, which of course I'm pleased to reveal more of today. So I guess with that, before we move to the final section in Q&A, Dave, do you want to walk through the Smarter Markets Coffee House platform a little bit?
Yes, thanks, Josh. Thanks, everyone. Just to take a step back, we created Smarter Markets to put a spotlight on issues surrounding trust, identity, market infrastructure, and technology that we believe are important, and to see if there were others out there who felt the same way. And there were a lot of people that felt the same way. The podcast quickly moved into the top 1% of podcasts by listenership, and truly fantastic guests from across commodities, climate, and the technology space have come every Saturday to discuss how to improve our market systems and to address some of our biggest challenges. But there are only 52 Saturdays in a year. It's not enough. And so we created Smarter Markets Presents to take our approach to live events and conferences, partnering with the Wall Street Green Summit, Weimar Singapore, HFW, the Financial Times, AIDA, and the FIA. And we'll continue to do so. And now we'll be introducing Smarter Markets Coffee House. Smarter Markets Coffee House will be a social media platform where these conversations we've enjoyed every Saturday and these conversations we've started can continue around the clock. It'll be a new media platform using our ID++ technology and verified credentials to facilitate a better social media experience and freer exchange of ideas between a network of contributors, commenters, and members. On the outside, it will have a look, feel, and functionality familiar to users of LinkedIn or Twitter, X. On the inside, it'll use ID++ technology and verified credentials to permission access to the platform. We envision 3 levels of access. We'll have contributors that will be drawn from our extensive Smarter Markets network, and contributors will be able to post content to the site, much like you could post to LinkedIn or Twitter. We'll have commenters that will also be drawn from this expanded network that's formed around Smarter Markets, and commenters will be able to comment on those posts. We'll also have members, and anyone who wishes to use the platform will be able to sign up for a membership, and members will be able to read posts and comments, all accessed through our verified credentials. Permissions will roll up so that contributors will also be commenters, and contributors and commenters will also be members. The initial goal is to use this permissioning to create a troll-free comment section where we can all disagree without being disagreeable, where we can allow meaningful conversations between experienced market practitioners on important issues to unfold 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and our members will be able to follow them all. And over time, our goal is to give users an experience and ability to interact in ways that are simply not possible without our ID++ technology. Building new markets and exchanges begins with the exchange of ideas. Many of today's great exchanges were born in coffee houses, including the New York and London stock exchanges. At Smarter Markets, we're building this virtual coffee house to continue to facilitate the exchange of ideas that will lead to the smarter markets and financial exchanges of tomorrow. And we plan on launching Smarter Markets Coffee House in coming months, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, David. Before moving to the Q&A, I'll touch briefly on our capital strategy again as it relates to the two operating entities. We've developed the structure of Abaxx Technologies software business as a separate operating entity, yet as described above, still highly complementary to our primary business at Abaxx Exchange, unlocking the ability to generate new innovations in the exchange. And going forward, depending on the capacity of our balance sheets and the corporate finance decisions we make at the parent company level, we'll continue to develop new business lines organically or via partnerships or acquisitions on the Abaxx Tech level balance sheet. This two operating entity strategy should also allow us to optimize our cost of capital in different market segments. To date, we've only brought in minimal strategic capital into Abaxx Singapore, where we still only own about 90%, but we will look to bring in additional strategic partners post-launch to scale the product and business opportunities in Abaxx Singapore. Some of those conversations are still in place from the pre-launch placement, and new inbound discussions have started post-launch as well. On the Abaxx Technology side, as a standalone operating moving some of the software to a standalone operating subsidiary, we've started to explore a similar strategy, looking at JVs, small acquisitions, and/or small external funding opportunities to unlock value that we don't believe is currently being reflected in the public equity markets with such a dominant focus on Abaxx Exchange and clearing. So as long-term Abaxx shareholders know, we will continue to pursue multiple funding optimization strategies to unlock the optimum cost of capital and minimize dilution for two very exciting and scalable business opportunities, both housed and majority owned and operated under the publicly traded holding company of Abaxx Technologies. With that, I think we're at the top of the hour, perfectly timed. So thank you all for joining, and we will return our conference calls and disclosures on a normal quarterly basis going forward.